Hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining me tonight for part 3 of 4 parts of my Mongolian adventures. So tonight I am going to be talking all about the landscapes, the time that I spent with the Reindeer Tribes, and also all my rides that I got around on, which are obviously Mongolian horses, reindeers, and camels. So I'm excited because there's ton of photos to show you, and I'm going to try and flip through them pretty quickly so I can get through everything and don't hold you up. Now, if you do have any questions about Mongolia or anything in general, please pop them down in the comment section and I will get back to them. Next week, I am going to be doing the final episode of Mongolia. I have titled it Gobi, Genghis, and Gone Girl. So you really kind of want to watch this one because I am going to explain to you and how the heck the craziness that I had trying to leave Mongolia. So definitely make sure you look out for this next week because it is a crazy story. So first off, I'm going to start with the landscapes. Now the landscapes here are absolutely beautiful. I think it's one of the reasons is because of the wide open spaces. It kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of what the prairies would be, but with no buildings, nothing going on, in the middle of nowhere. And you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere most of the time. There are obviously towns scattered throughout, but they are quite small. The main one is Ulaanbaatar, obviously, and that's like a city. But once you get out of there, the landscapes are just absolutely beautiful, and the weather, the things that you don't expect, like just fields of wildflowers. And then you get to different areas. This one's a little bit more up north, you get into the mountains and the evergreen trees. This one's in central where it's more flat, wide open spaces. And, we were on horses at this point and I just wanted to jump off and hang out with all the goats. This one, more mountainous, lots of valleys and stuff. I was quite surprised about all the evergreen trees. When I was doing one of the horse treks, I felt like I was back at home in Vancouver because it just felt like you were in the forests here with all the evergreen trees. Now the weather here is amazing because you get to see it pass by and you think you're going to get absolutely poured on and it doesn't even come near you. So just sitting out and watching it. These mountains also surprised me. I wasn't expecting mountains like this in Mongolia. I don't know why, because I didn't do enough research. But yeah, it was really beautiful and surprising. But the escape of hardly any poles, any power lines or anything like that, any of those normalcies that you tend to see everywhere else in the world, is just void of that. They have mostly solar panels on all of their girs and everything like that, so you don't have all of those wires coming out from everywhere. And everything just looks like little ants, like you're just far away from everything, and everything just looks so small because everything's so vast. You obviously also come across herders, so obviously this is a sheep herder, taking them from one place to the other. And one of the things that I was worried about, this was one of the towns that we stayed in where the Nandam was, and this is what the towns look like. It's just small little houses and just little shops that, nothing that's really big or expansive. But obviously if you had watched the last episode, you knew that I got my bag stolen at the Nandam Festival. So I didn't have any lenses with my camera. So I was really worried because the only lens that I had was the lens that I had with me on my camera, which was the 70-200, which was my telephoto lens. And I was so excited to be in Mongolia and take photos of like the wide open spaces, the vastness, the emptiness, that I was worried that I wouldn't be able to portray that in the photos. But lo and behold, this place is so vast and so wide open that I think if I had used a wide angle lens, that it would have been lost. having that more telephoto lens just made everything come to life a lot more. You know, they also have all of these like painted rocks. This is, they call this the white stupa, which is really, really interesting down there as well. Again, Gers on the side of the road. You know, that was it's like an Airbnb, really. That's where we stayed on our first night, just in the middle of nowhere. And you're always going to see people with horses. They are brought up with horses, everyone. So everyone knows how to ride horses from a very young age. And then you get to the Gobi, and yeah, just beautiful, beautiful views. The Gobi was surprising as well. I will talk about that next week, but definitely was a lot surprising and not what I was expecting from the Gobi Desert. This, again, a huge rainstorm just blowing through, and you just got to watch it go by you, and it didn't even come near us. We didn't get rained on or anything. And then same, the cloud formations that you find here are astronomical. I love clouds, and the lighting and the clouds that just build up around the areas is just really, really beautiful. And then you have here, this is the Flaming Cliffs, and these, it's called that because at sunset they look like they're on fire. And then over lastly here, again, you just have the sunset with the Gers in the middle of nowhere that you stay in. Again, your Airbnb, and lakes. And it's just really, really magical here. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to come here was to go and find the nomadic reindeer tribes. I had talked to a friend who had a friend who's Mongolian, and he was saying, oh yeah, it's really, really hard to find them, and you'd have to find, you know, a group and stuff like that to take you there, because you can't drive up to go see them. You have to horse trek into them. And so my tour group at Sunpath Tours was part of one of their tours that I went on. And so I was so excited. We drove to our horse camp first, and from there the next morning, you know, the night before, they were telling us, okay, well, you know, tomorrow, you know, it might be a 10-hour ride. And our guides used to make jokes and play jokes on us all the time, so we all laughed because we thought they were lying to us. Lo and behold, they weren't, because when you book the tour, they're like, oh yeah, 4 hours, that's all you're going to ride, 4 hours, because none of us are experienced horse riders. Nope, it was an 8-hour day. But it was worth it. Like, look at this. The reindeer tribes all live in teepees during the summer. So this is where they hang out for the summer. In the winter, they go to different areas, and they live in Gers. So they're more warmer and that for the really cold winters that they get here. So we settled in. We got to put all of our stuff into the teepee that we're staying in, and then you go and visit with the family that you are staying with. So this is inside their teepee. Everyone comes in and, you know, sits there. It is really weird because no one speaks any English except for your guides, and we all just end up just sitting there staring at each other. You can ask, obviously, questions through your guide to them. But it's kind of, they think it's kind of, I think they probably think it's kind of weird that we're wanting to come visit them. But I know I was super excited to hang out with them. Now, after all of that, there wasn't a whole lot of reindeer when we arrived. We were like, oh, okay, well, this is nice. And then we came out of the tent, and this huge herd of reindeer just came strolling into our camp. It was the most magical thing ever. Like, you just walk out the little teepee, and whoo, here come all the reindeer. Like, it was huge amounts of reindeer, and basically all the herders are bringing back the reindeer, and then our horse guides, they come out and they help sort, because there's a few different reindeers from different I guess different tribes, different villages, different people's reindeer, so they all have markings or tags or whatever, that who belongs to who. So they have to sort them out and see who goes where. I love this photo because it's my Mongolian herders. They're just like us. Because never would you think that they would be posing for their photos in front of like all the reindeer and, you know, just in the middle of nowhere. I just thought it was absolutely amazing because I wouldn't think that this is what they're going to be doing. So I thought it was super cute. Now, this is where the reindeer all are, back there in the teepees in the back end there. That's another camp, so it was quite far away. All the camps do have dogs as well, but you are told and warned not to treat the dogs as pets. Like, do not pet them, do not go near them. They are strictly guard dogs, and they will there to protect the herd, to protect the family from the wild animals that can come down. So they are very much guard dogs only. One of the things that you tend to see very quickly is how Mongolians, when they sit down, they sit on their side. And that's because they're on a horse all the time. After we've finished horseback riding, we understand why we're all sitting on our sides. But they just chill out. What we did here is we just wanted to sit and enjoy and just I just observed daily life. One thing that I thought was really cool about Mongolian Men was definitely every time we were in a new camp and we were in a new place staying, when there's children, the men automatically go straight to the kids. You don't see that in a whole lot of cultures where they go straight to the kids, hang out with the kids, you know, and stuff like that. So I thought it was super cool to see. So the man with the little girl is the family that lives there, and he is our main horse guide. The two guys on the other side, they're brothers, they're his sons. So they were also horse guides. Now, what we did, like we would hike, you know, walk up the little hills. We basically had free time most of the day. I would just sit and watch how everyone interacted with each other and what they did on a daily basis. I would sit down on the ground and just write and take photos and just observe. And then you just have like a couple reindeer come in behind you and say, "Oh, hi there." And you just have reindeer all around you. So it was really, really cool. So basically all their chores I just watched and photographed. So they're basically making sure that all the reindeer are accounted for. And then you have the people on horseback riding. Some of them would be breaking in new horses. Some of them would be catching some wild horses. And then they would just be doing different things for rounding things up for the families that we're staying with. And then this guy, you know, just hanging out with his reindeer. Come on. I loved watching the families interact with each other. They were very family-centric people, and I really loved that because he obviously, the dad he was just in the second to last photo, and so he was doing all of his chores, and then, you know, near the evening, you know, he got to come out and play with his kids, and they just came out running to him. So it was just a really sweet moment. Now this morning, I got up super early. I got up for sunrise, and just the beautiful view of like just a couple horses and the redness on the mountains was worth it. I was the only one up. Well, I wasn't the only one up. The women were up to milk the reindeer. That's right. They are milking the reindeer for the day's milk. So it was just really nice, quiet moment. Then as we were leaving or getting ready to leave and everything, that morning we had all the reindeer come up and just really hang out with us. It was one of those times where it felt like they were, well, I guess they're kind of domestic animals here, obviously because they're owned herds. But it felt like they were almost like cows. They would come up and just like be really curious. Their antlers felt like velvet, and like they're very sensitive, so you don't touch them very often, but you can touch them a little bit, and it felt like they had just velvet all through their antlers. It was really beautiful. And then I was sitting down taking some selfies, as you do, and this guy came over and was just so curious at me, and then he just, I got some reindeer kisses before I left. Now, one of the things that I didn't know about was that they ride reindeer over here. They actually have reindeer races, and we didn't have a lot of reindeer at our camp that we were at because the father of that camp was away with a lot of his reindeer doing these races. But we horseback rode over to another camp, and we were able to try this out. This obviously is one of our guides, and the way that they got on is he just, basically tackled him with, well, he already had a saddle on it, and so he was just chasing after it, trying to jump on. He attempted quite a few times, but he was finally successful, and of course his brother had to get in on it. And you know what? I think, okay, this is Simon. Everyone had a chance on the reindeer. I was the last person because I was worried that I was going to kill the reindeer. I thought I was too large, so I almost didn't do it. But I got convinced to do it, and I'm so glad I did. I didn't kill the reindeer, but it was one hell of an experience. And I seriously think that they chose the reindeer with the biggest rack, because the hardest thing riding a reindeer is there's hardly anything to hold on to. You can't hold, there's like a little metal ring on the top of the saddle, and that's the only thing you have to hold on to. But what's the challenging part is staying away from the antlers, because if he's moving his head, the antlers are just brushing by you and they could knock you right off. So that was the hardest part about being on a reindeer. I love this photo because look at all the guys. Cigarettes hanging out of their mouths. It's just amazing because almost every Mongolian smokes over here, and this is just a classic photo of what it's like. Looking a little intimidated, and then everyone's laughing because I am the only person that is hooting and hollering, screaming and giggling at the top of my lungs. So it just was a ton of fun. You're not on for very long, just a couple minutes, and then that was it. And then obviously the little boy that lives here, he had to get on and show off as well. Like, look at those antlers. They're as big as this boy. Horseback riding was amazing. I hadn't horseback ridden very often. I've done it a few times in a couple of different countries, but I have never done it for this long. I'm glad I read some blogs on what to expect when riding Mongolian horses and on horses in general, and I'm so glad I learned a few tips and tricks, like wearing leggings underneath your pants so you don't chafe, and just different things that you should be knowing what to do. But they bring all the horses to you, and then they set you up. They make sure that your stirrups are at the right height, and they tell you how to ride the horse. The horses here, they do not have names, first off. They either have markings or they just call it by the color of what the horse is. So we get to name all of our horses. This is my horse, and I called him Maverick, and Maverick was a show-off, and he made me a little nervous just on the way back. He was a great horse, because this trek was harder than any horseback riding that I've ever done, and most people had done. It was a bit more of a technical ride because it wasn't wide open spaces. You were going up mountains and through creeks and through rivers and over snow and through forests, through lots of trees and everything else. So there was lots of mud as well. So it was a really technical ride, but super fun and interesting. Your legs definitely get tired because we were out for 8 hours. We did stop twice before we got to the Reindeer Tribe camp. But it was definitely a really cool experience. Come on. Maverick's bangs are so on point here that you just can't help to love him. Now, the saddles here, I read that they don't have Western saddles. They have Mongolian saddles, which are pretty uncomfortable. And so when I mentioned this to one of our guides, he's like, "What are you talking about? This is a Western saddle." So this is the Western saddle in Mongolia. I'm wondering if it's the Western saddle because it came with like a padding. So I'm unsure what what the major difference is, but all I know is that I read a ton of blogs saying that the Mongolian saddles are super uncomfortable. This wasn't the most comfortable, but it wasn't really uncomfortable. You definitely just get sore legs from being in one position the whole time. The views, again, gorgeous. I wasn't expecting to see views like this. It reminded me of being right back at home, so it was really nice to have that feeling walking, riding through, while the horse was walking, we were riding through these beautiful forests of all these wonderful trees. You know, there's a little snow left that hasn't gone away yet, so some of the guys would, you know, slide down the snow as we were resting. This is what everyone looked like when we got off the horses. Getting off the horses was hard, especially after the longer the day went on, trying to get off the horse because you're basically frozen in one position. So everyone's just trying to do the best they can. And, you know, going through mud, everyone's, you know, sometimes we went through a little bit of rain, but most of the time we had really good weather, which was nice because they were saying the tour prior to ours, they got all rain. So we lucked out. This was one of our horse guides. The horse guides love to smile it up with all the ladies. So definitely use that to my advantage for the photos. This was at one of our stops as well. They were cooling off the horses. Some of the pack horses were getting a little bit too warm, so they took it down to the river to cool her off. And then this one is, I did a second horse trek in central Mongolia, and it was completely different. This one had wide open spaces, and basically you just go. It was so much fun because with the other one, we didn't get to do any fast riding because there was so much unknowns and really technical. At the end we could have done it, but my legs were done and they were jello, and so I decided not to. So I was kind of disappointed that I didn't, but then I went on the second tour and we did horseback riding here, and this was perfect. Now there's only one command with the horses here, and it's called chew. So you just say chew and the horse goes. Everything else is you're doing with the, I want to say straps because that's all I can think of. But yeah, that's the only command that they have. Whenever we're somewhere in the middle of nowhere, this is how they tie up the horses. Now, one of the things here is when you do say chew, I think they don't understand our accents very well because at certain points I wanted to go fast as I could go, and I would say chew, chew, and he was going okay, but not fast. And then my actual guide would come up beside me, and I was like, my horse isn't going fast. Why? And he's like, well, you just got to tell him to say chew. And I was like, I am. And then he would say it for me, and I would off like a rocket. It was amazing. So they don't understand accents very well. This guy on the left, the guy looking at me, he was our horse guide there. He was hilarious. He would sing to all of us ladies. Every time he came up beside us on the horse, he would start singing to us. And then on all of our breaks, he would do throat singing. So if you don't know what throat singing is, definitely Google it because it is very, known throughout Mongolia. And then on the right, those were our horse guides, some of our horse guides from the first tour. Now then comes the camels, and camels in Mongolia are two-humped, which is exciting because there's not a lot of places with two-humped camels. I've ridden on single-humped camels, dromedaries, and I thought it was a ton of fun. I thought camels with two humps would be easier because you just kind of sit in between the humps, but I found it way more uncomfortable than the dromedaries. But I'm still super excited. Now, I rode camels twice. This was on the first tour, and we were in, what is it called? Little Gobi, sorry. So this is in Little Gobi, so it's kind of a little bit outside of, where the Gobi Desert really is. It's just a different area of the Gobi Desert. But when we started doing our walking along with our camels, me and Mike, who's beside me, we were kind of on our own, separated from the other group, but we had all the baby camels following along with us, which was the super cutest. And the camels would just turn their necks and just come and look up at you and see who the heck is on their backs, which I was worried that they were going to bite me or spit at me, but they never did. And yeah, the Gobi, lots of grass, surprising. And I love this photo of Mike on the right because I looked over and there was just a swarm of flies all around him. So we were peeing ourselves laughing. And then I started doing some camel portraits because every camel is different and they all have their own unique look and their own unique style. And then there's obviously me on another camel in the Gobi Desert. Now this camel here, I like to say that he is like my Kate Winslet, who wants to be painted like one of his French girls, because he is just set up to be painted. And this is in the main Gobi Desert, along where all the sand dunes are. And we had a nice camel ride. It was, maybe an hour or so long. We went in groups. Now, one of the things with the camels, you got to make sure that how you get on and off the camel is very abrupt. So it's abrupt getting up and it's abrupt going down. My camel had a mind of its own. We were at the end of our camel ride and our guide was helping everyone off and I was just sitting on my camel. He had put the camel down and he was just sitting down and I wasn't going to get off this camel without a hand. So I was just waiting there. And it's a good thing I didn't try to get off this camel because our guide was helping everyone else. My camel decided just to shoot right back up. You can just imagine me going, woo! And guess we're getting up. And so he just kind of sauntered off with me on his back while everyone was getting off their camels. So the guy had to chase me to come get me. So it was a great experience. I definitely recommend riding all of these types of animals because it is an experience you will never forget. So I hope you enjoyed. This is how you can find me through my websites, Launch Your Travels. You can also check out more photos of mine at Jen Williams Photography. Check me out on Instagram at Jen Williams Photo and Adventurous Travel Tales. And then you can also find me on Facebook. If you haven't liked me already, please hit that like button. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me and I will get back to you. I've also created a free planner for you guys. So it takes you step by step through how to start planning your own travels. Even though we can't travel right now, the best thing to do next is to start planning for a future trip. I hope you guys have a wonderful night and I will see you next week. Talk to you later.